Welcome to Right There With You, where we lean into life's biggest questions, challenge what we know, and discover the strength we've had.
This is my dear friend and co-host, Ciarra Jones, theologian and lifelong explorer of faith, identity, and purpose.
And say hello to my co-host and buddy, Cass Cooper, a professional chaos whisperer who loves untangling the complexity of human relationships.
Here we embrace the journey, no matter how uncertain, messy, or transformative it gets.
And no matter where you are on yours, we're right there with you.
Hey, friend, how's it going?
Yo, it's going good. I start a new job on Monday, so trying to relax a little bit before that transition, but feeling good otherwise.
I love how your idea of relax is schedule meetings, schedule a podcast recording. You probably have some sort of outdoor activity that you're going to do. Go for a quick run, whatever that looks
I'm gonna
like.
work out right after this recording.
See, for me, relaxation means going and getting a massage and laying in my bed and doing absolutely nothing. So I love that you're excited for your job. I'm really excited for you too. Congratulations, friend.
Well, I think the one thing, unfortunately, that self-employment breaks is your ability to rest without fear. I think that'll be something I have to come back to because you just start to feel like every pocket of time you have is money. So you're like, I want to hustle. So I feel, even if you feel set for 3 months, then you want to feel set for 6 months, and you want to feel set for a year. That's you kind of do feel that feast or famine pressure. So I think there's something in my nervous system that probably has to heal around rest too. I went this weekend, my partner and I went to Napa, and that was really
It
nice. First time
looked
I'll probably have
so
had a
fun.
vacation in months, so that was really nice.
Ooh, that's a relationship test right there. How'd it go?
We travel so well together. That has been a really nice, I've never, literally the first time we traveled, I was like, this is the first relationship I have not fought with someone in travel, actually. Not one issue. So that's a good, even when we got to the hotel room, I had gotten us one that had a attached kitchenette because it's just nice if you can have a microwave and
Yeah.
I don't know,
Someplace to make coffee and yeah.
exactly. And you could tell that people had cooked in it. So the room was clean, but it just had an odor of food and stuff. And I was used to maybe in the past, I don't know, having a fight about that. Oh, we got this room and now, but then it was just such a chill conversation. We just switched rooms and it was just fine. So it
Yeah.
was very easeful. We did a little black winery tour. So it was nice.
I love that. That's my dream. My next big birthday is 45, so I think I'm gonna
Mm,
do a Napa trip and do the train situation. I think that's gonna be
yes.
really cool.
My
Yeah.
friend told me her and her man did the wine train and that it was so fun. So
Okay.
we got to do the Black Winery. You should do Brown Estate, and they need a reservation, but it's beautiful. And then I went to Tamara Mowry's winery, Housley. Amazing,
She's
amazing.
in the news. Did you hear that?
No,
They've been calling her Tamaga.
what?
Yes, because her husband, did you not hear about this?
No.
Okay, so she's married to what's his name, Housley or whatever. I guess he was a baseball player. I don't know that
Oh,
much
I
about
didn't
him,
know
to
that.
be
Wow.
honest. But he went on this Twitter rampage disparaging people using food stamps and assistance, and how it's so bad that these people would come into his parents' store and they would use food stamps to pay for junk food when they should be using that. And then it's, the age-old trope of we need to be able to police and tell people what to buy with public assistance and train them on how to eat better. And this whole idea that people who have money are better equipped to teach people who don't have money and who need public assistance how to use their money. And it just totally is devoid of the idea that there's systemic imbalance and the reason why they have less access to healthier food options. There's a creator online talking about, okay, well, clearly you've never lived in a food desert. Not everybody has access to some place where they can just drive and get fresh food. Sometimes that's the best thing that they can offer for their family. Or if you're trying to make a few $100s in assistance lasts for 4 weeks, you've got to do instant mac and cheese and whatever that looks like. Also, convenience food is not something to be ashamed of, in my opinion. Some days it's just food that you just eat and it's there because it's convenient. Nobody has time to make pasta from scratch, right? So it was just this whole idea and this whole thing that went back and forth on Twitter. Well, you were in beautiful wine country, so you probably missed it.
Yeah,
So by
absolutely.
proxy, of course, the woman is in trouble for what her husband is doing, and then add on that she's black, she's biracial, and he's white. So
Mhm. And it's not
they're
the first.
calling her Tamaga.
Dang. Well, and she's had some other stuff happened with him that I think people have been a little bit hard on her around with, like, racially, and, like, I think there's been other comments in the relationship that have made people feel like she's not always operating within her Black consciousness, I feel. I can't remember what
Yeah.
happened before, but I know there's a feeling of that, but it is real. I think, like, the already women become responsible for the comments of their male partner, and I think that becomes doubly true for Black women when their white male partners act up because Black folks feel like, well, your job is to maintain this line around justice and equity in the partnership, and it's complicated.
It is that whole idea of like being responsible for your male partner, which is a thing that women have no matter
Mhm.
what, but also like I think Black women more so than other races, which actually
Yeah,
brings us to our topic that we're here to talk about today. So
yeah.
we're here to talk about misogynoir, which is wild that we
Mhm.
see it so rampantly. Quickly, before we get started, I'm going to define misogynoir so people can kind of like know what we're talking about. And then we'll just kind of like wrap off of there and then talk a little bit about the 92%. Right. So, misogynoir is a term referring to the combined force of anti Black racism and the misogyny directed towards Black women. The term was coined by Black feminist writer Moya Bailey in 2008 to address misogyny directed towards Black transgender and cisgender women in American visual and popular culture. So that's the working definition. Is there anything you want to add to that, Sarah?
I like that definition. I have nothing to add. I feel like that's
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's also, there's so many layers to being a Black woman and the misogyny, the racism. It's good to have one term
mm,
that breaks that all down. And
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
the Tamara Housley situation is a great example of that because there's so many layers. You know, she's married to a white man who makes these comments that are, talking points for being of privilege, but then also she has a lot of privilege, having come
Mhm.
from an acting background, being biracial and multiracial, light skinned, identified. So I think there's like a lot of layers to who we are within those things. I don't know. What are your
Absolutely.
thoughts?
And I think what's interesting about misogynoir, why I love the term, is sexism is not a robust enough term to describe the experiences of Black women in America. There is a race and gender happenings, or race and gender happening simultaneously. And then for queer women, there's also this aspect of gender presentation. I think what's really interesting, especially having taken a lot of African American studies classes, is sometimes Black professors will raise a question like, are Black women gendered under an entirely different umbrella than white women themselves? Like, do we exist in that whole other kind of gender space that Black womanhood is its own gendered and racialized experience in the US, like from having your doctors not believe in your pain, from having your boss not see your competency, to having your partner maybe not see your softness. Like there are many ways misogynoir comes up in our lives, and I think it's just a cool term to think about the unique experiences that Black women have just because of the intersectional identity that we carry.
Yeah, and I love how I love that you said intersectional because it's an evolution of what Kimberly Crenshaw was talking about in the 90s, right? Of, that we are experiencing all these things at the same time and it does make our experience very different. And I think back to my own experience, right? In college, I grew up in a very white middle class area in the Midwest. And so when I went to college, I just really wanted to be around more Black folks, but it required me to really unpack my own internalized misogynoir. And
Mm,
and I didn't have the language to do it really, like I didn't know what I was experiencing. I just knew that I wasn't Black enough for this side of the house and I wasn't white at all,
uh-huh.
but I really felt connected to white women. But there's always this like, they didn't understand me in my Blackness. They only saw me
Mm,
as a woman. And then dealing with Black men was like a whole nother situation because, there's this, I just didn't grow up around a lot of men in general. And so it was like all these different layers that it was really hard to find the language to understand and unpack
mm.
where that all fits, you
Mm.
know?
When did you first start to come across this language or realize, oh, other Black women are having the experiences I'm having? Or
Oh my gosh, yeah, I don't think I think I was more of an adult, and I think it
mm,
really was well, no, that's not true because I took some classes, in undergrad in my women's studies courses that really pointed to it, And I think that's what I was so drawn to was the Black feminist literature because I was able to see myself in the writing of bell hooks. I was able to
Mm,
see myself in the writing, but I think it was me also over intellectualizing my experience and using my intellect to kind of explain my emotions. And I think once I had that, it gave me the space to feel the things that I was feeling. So I would say I was probably in my 30s before I really felt like I could be good, close girlfriends with Black women. And then now I just feel like I seek it out. Like I'm like, "Oh, you're a Black girl in this space. We both work in this arena. We're gonna be friends because we're the only Black people in this room. And what are you doing after this? Let's go have a cocktail. Let's go have a cup of coffee type
yeah,
situation." But I would say, yeah, I was probably well into my 30s,
interesting.
like maybe like 32, 33. And I think also being a mom has something to do with it. I wanted my kid to be around Black women that were strong and that just were cool, right? Like I just wanted her to see being a Black girl as being cool, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, I like
And
that.
she's got to be around other Black women who are cool. So I got to seek them out a little bit. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I think I was in grad school in my 20s when I started to really build formative relationships with Black women in my mid-20s. And it's interesting 'cause my high school was really diverse, but we just didn't I think a lot of Black women, we just didn't gravitate towards each other until later. Like, I actually reconnected with a lot of Black women I went to high school with later on in my early to mid-20s because all of a sudden we had all this new language around our shared experience that we got from college or African American studies classes, our gender classes that helped us be like, did you experience this in high school? Because I did. And like, what came up for you? And I think what was nice for me about forming relationships with Black women and getting more language like misogynoir or intersectionality to describe my experience is it helped me to like depersonalize experiences that I saw through a lot of shame. I did a lot of elite sports when I was younger, and as a Black woman, I
Mhm.
experienced so much rejection and bullying from white women that I did sports with, and I took that so personally. Then years later, I realized, oh my gosh, like it was them being intimidated because I was a talented Black woman in their space, and as a young girl, I took on so much shame around particularly rejection and harm I experienced from white women as my own. And when I got
Mm,
older and knew a Black woman, I felt like I could like comfort that inner child that had felt rejection when actually, like, I think a lot of the reasons Black women experience rejection is because we are shining bright and challenging the status quo. And instead of receiving celebration, a lot of us receive vitriol. And I had just taken on so much shame. So I think what was really nice about forming formative relationships with Black women like you and other Black women was like a lot of Black women reflected back to me the best parts of myself where the world had reflected like this mangled image of me that I think comes
yeah.
from noir. This like we're filtered through this image that just isn't us, but we're taught to take that on and to really carry that burden, you know?
I completely identify with that. Like, I think, and I almost want to ask you before I say it's this whole idea of we're not supposed to be in that space.
Yes, yes.
Right? And so I just that feeling of I know I belong here because this is what I'm good at. This is what I enjoy. This is where I find myself and find joy in like even just being a kid and just you're just a kid. You just want to run around and be with your friends, or people that you feel like are your friends. And that whole, well, you're not really supposed to be here
Mm,
that you feel from other kids is some of the hardest rejection. And then it does become an internalized part of, okay, well, where do I belong and what does that look like? And I think for so many of us, I don't know, I found solace in like journaling, and that's really when I started writing. So I found like space to create my own thing. And so
mm,
as an adult, I had to invite people into that space
mm,
rather than that space was already created and I was going to it. Because when
mm.
I would go to it, I wasn't accepted.
Absolutely, you had to forge it. I think
Yeah.
something's coming to mind when you talk about that. I'm big on gardening as like a side of healing for Black women and like because it just ended up being like an allegory for so much in my life. And I think the first thing I remember noticing when I garden is like I never blame a plant for not blooming. My first question is like, what are the environmental factors that aren't allowing this thing to bloom or grow? I'm never like this individual seedling sucks. I'm like, what's the environment? And I think like one thing that I just heard in what you said and what I've been thinking about a lot is like Black women looking around at their environment and being like, is this a place where I can grow? Is it a place that sees me? Because I think we're taught that if we're not thriving or not growing, it's like a deficiency in us versus like, is this environment a place where I can shine and be seen and be valued? I don't know why what you said just made me think about that. I guess like,
Yeah, no, and there's so much about I think this is where our spirituality kind of comes into play too. And I mean, I totally hold space for people who maybe aren't as spiritual as some or don't have that like religiosity. You know, we talked on the on previous episode about our own faith backgrounds and stuff like that. And I think understanding that the space that you need to create is there for you when you start to really like look for it rather than expecting someone outside or, you know, the God of the universe to create that. Like you kind of have to be in community or in conversation with the God of the universe in order to like make that happen and move it forward. And I think so much as a kid, it's like, well, you don't have the autonomy to really like make things the way that you want. And so as an adult, it just makes it a little bit easier, hopefully,
Yeah.
even though those same outside influences are making it harder, you know?
Actually, Cass knows I'm big on therapy. We're big on therapy, and like,
Yeah, I've got
something
therapy
like
tomorrow. I can't
yeah,
wait.
exactly, yeah, and something I've been tackling a lot in therapy is, like, my own sense of shame, and I think for a lot of Black women, like I said, like, the misogynoir and its impact becomes a shame that we carry, like, it's a shame for us when our doctor doesn't hear our pain, or shame for us when our boss is condescending, like, it's this taking on that's why I mentioned environment, like, it's this taking on of a sense of failure versus feeling agency, as you said, to, like, shape a world around us that is healthy, that is connected, and recently, I went through a big life shift, and I was struggling to accept that shift. And something my mom had said is like, if you can see the shift as an opportunity to restructure your life in a way that allows you to really insulate love around you and connection around you, maybe you'll feel a lot more positive about that. Like, instead of seeing it as this major loss or this thing that there's nothing good in, how does this new opportunity for change allow you to really take stock of your relationships and your connections to make sure they are safe places, that they are positive places? And I think something I realized for a Black woman, like it is a public health necessity for us to make sure our relationships are positive. That in a world that does wear us down, where we experience weathering the process of bias and racism that impacts our health, impacts our well being, that it is our right and our job to protect ourselves through making sure our relationships are positive and healthy. And I think lately I've been trying to pour into friendships that are good, to hobbies that are good, so that I can protect myself in a world that doesn't always see my value or see who I am. And I guess I'm wondering like what that process is for you. Like in a world that causes us so much harm, how do you protect yourself, build a fortress of love and care around yourself?
Yeah, I would definitely double down on the relationship part. Like, I mean, you know, my friends are my people. My friends are my family. Like,
Mm,
you know, I was on the phone with somebody earlier and, you know, they're like, okay, I'm filling out my beneficiary information. I need your social. And I mean, that is the level that we're at. And
yeah.
I just think that, you know, that is such a safe space for me. And being really, I don't want to say insulated because I feel like insulated sounds like a little bit of paranoia, but also it is insulated. It's very selective of who I let into my inner circle. Because there's one thing to be a friend, but there's another thing to be like an intimate part of my life.
Mm,
And it's taken a lot to understand that not everybody who is kind or a good person deserves those intimate spaces.
mm,
And I have to be open to the possibility that people are not as good as for me as they are for somebody else. And so, yeah, it's weird, right? So you look at somebody who is just a good person, right? Like objectively, they like do nice things. They are good to their kid or their pet or their plant or whatever that looks like, right? But that doesn't mean that they're going to gel with you and vibe with you and that you can trust them with the intimacy of your life
mm.
and with like your deep, dark, tender spaces. And so, but that's okay. That doesn't mean you can't be in community with them. That doesn't mean you can't be friends with them and go, you know, grab brunch or whatever that looks like. But you don't necessarily have to be that kind of like close knit, intimate friends because they're on their own journey and they might not be equipped to deal with that or it might make them uncomfortable. They're dealing with their own shame and guilt that they're trying to negotiate and really being honoring that other people have that, I think it's hard because I want to be close to people, but then you look at the way they handle that closeness. Sometimes, like, I've been in a relationship with people where they make me feel bad for sharing things that have happened to me. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm just telling you my experience, you
Yes.
know, and maybe I should not have done that. And so now I know that I'm not, but that doesn't make you a bad person. That just means you're not my person or you're
I
not
would
one of
love
my people, you know?
I love that, and I think that level of discernment comes from deep self-acceptance and not seeing relationship through a lens of, like, shame, but trusting to know what is good for you, what you need. I name that because, I talked about a big shift. I had a big breakup last year, and that, like, destabilized every sense of my identity from, like, my sense of self-confidence, my sense of my professional identity, my identity, my friendships, like, everything was rocked, and I think for a while that meant that I was clinging to friendships that weren't serving me because I was just in such a place of low self-esteem, like, I just felt like I don't want any other relationship to leave me, and, like, if I'm not feeling good here, it's my fault because I'm showing up depressed or I'm showing up sad. And something I realized was like my own shame was blocking me from assessing the health of my relationships. And my own like grief was blocking me, or just that desire to cling to anything meant I wasn't being
Yeah.
discerning about what were the quality of my relationships. And lately I've been reminding myself like allow relationships to shift and change as you do. So you're one allowing that person to be authentic to what they who they are and what they need, but you're also honoring where you are now. And so I name on that just to say, like, as I mentioned, I think when we are in a world as Black women that tears down our sense of self-esteem and confidence, and we experience just life events around that that can really hurt our confidence, I've had to remind myself to be my own friend. Like, and when as I like myself more, as I am my own friend in a world that is not my friend, I'm able to lean into better and healthier relationships. But I found that some of that process you're describing comes with some grief. And I've only been able to accept those changes as I've been able to accept myself, because otherwise I cling to relationships that don't serve me. And I'm at the very beginning of that process. In some ways, at 31, I'm crawling through a whole new growth of identity, which has meant allowing some relationships to shift and change. And that has not been always easy, but it has
I
been
think
a full process.
and I've told you this several times, and I'm gonna say it again. 30, 31, 32 is the age where all the relationship starts to shift and ebb and flow. Like, you're no longer a young spring chicken adult, but you're not, like, grown, you know what I mean? Like, I still don't feel like I'm grown at 43, let's just
I
be
don't
real
feel
about
grown.
that.
I feel younger at 31 than I did at 25. So
That part. I also feel like I have no idea what I'm doing half the time, but,
all the
it's
time.
okay. But still, everyone listen to this podcast because we have wisdom.
You know what? You know we're wise because we'll admit what we don't know.
That's no, but that's actually on my board. I am wise because I have been foolish.
Yes. And
That is the that
I'm
is the thing.
crawling right now. I'm like a seedling of a Black auntie. You know what I mean? Like I'm at the very beginning of the process.
Yeah, you definitely give Black Auntie. You are the vibe. You're the one that, like, the kiddo's gonna call, like, I don't know how to tell my mom, but I just this okay, well, you don't have to tell her, but this is what I would suggest and da da da. Like, you definitely that's your I hope for my kid that is who you are.
That's what I'm trying to get to. But I think just going back to what you're saying, like I think the first step to becoming wise at all is to letting go of the performance of perfection. My last year has been a messy process of becoming. It has been it has relieved a lot of pressure for me to be like, "Sometimes I don't know," and right now, I think there's my friend told me I think it's Octavia Butler quote, like, quote, "There's years questions and years for answers," and the last year, I was in such resistance to my own sense of bewilderment, but lately, I've been like, "Girl, we are bewildered and we are lost," and maybe that means we're also present for the experience of our lives, and that's important too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, and it's hard to arrive at that when the backdrop is so much misogynoir and so many anti-black and anti-woman rhetoric that's going on.
Yeah.
And at the time that we're recording this, we are exactly 30 days post inauguration. And I think right now is a time I notice that a lot of Black women are, taking a seat, taking a beat. We are staying hydrated and
Got it right
washing our
here.
face. Yes. Stay hydrated and keeping up with our skincare. Just because I think what I personally experienced is pouring so much into so many people and so many different parts of my life, whether it be professionally, personally, even publicly, advocating for social justice and changes just for the world to just be like, well, sorry. And it's hard to watch. And I think it is a time for us to I'm finding a lot of relief in just taking care of me and my circle. And that's enough. I don't have to do more. I don't have to do any less than that. I can pick and choose. And because the reality is these issues, challenges, and problems are going to be there whether I pick up the mantle or not. And so, yeah, it's hard not to be defeated by what's
Mhm.
happening in the world, but I think the 92% were tired.
Can you say more about the 92% too in the movement?
Yes, the 92% representing the 92% of Black women who voted for VP Harris in this past election in the United States. It's 92% of Black women voted there. And I can't remember what the male statistic is, but it's an overwhelming majority. That is damn near all of Black women voted for a Black woman. And I think some of it is it's cool to be able to like have that solidarity. I mean, I got a whole group chat and we call ourselves the 92%. It just is so great to have that kind of like I see you, you see me,
Yeah.
you know. But I
Yeah.
think it is this expectation, and it comes from, it's rooted in misogynoir, that we're supposed to still be this like mammified character and
Mhm.
save the world, when in the end of the day, who's out here saving us?
100%. I think that it's a powerful movement because obviously throughout history, Black women have done so much to try to move the political needle within America's consciousness and of our social political landscape. And it has been at times deeply like to the detriment of our own well-being. And I think about just as I mentioned in the beginning, my own relationship to rest. Like I have a new job starting, and I felt like anytime I rest, I also feel this anxiety of being unproductive. And I think that's also this product of misogynoir, this belief that we have to always be in motion to be worth something or producing something that shows our exceptional value under white supremacy and capitalism. So I like this movement around the 92% around rest and well-being. And I think it's Zora Neale Hurston that says like caring for ourselves is an act of political resistance as marginalized people. Like, giving ourselves time to rest and to be is just so key. And I think, like I said, it really moved me last year when I was really grieving and my mom saying like part of loving yourself as a Black woman is forgiving yourself, is giving yourself grace, is expanding your idea of success and self-acceptance. That's so much of the work we have to do for ourselves and with ourselves. And so I think that's a process I'm in. So it's been, I don't know, I love the 92% movement and this
Yeah,
kind of radical rest movement, which I think is different than political disengagement. That's why I highlighted that quote from Zora Neale Hurston.
right.
For us, I think
It's
rest.
actually, I'm going to correct you. It's actually Audre Lorde.
Oh, Lord, thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
she says, caring, hold on, I pulled it up.
Caring for myself is
Caring
not an act of self-indulgence,
Come
right?
on. Yes,
It's an
caring for
act
myself
of
is not an act of self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. And I
yes,
think what's so
yes.
interesting, Crutches and Spice did a video about this just a few days ago, and she put it right, or they put it right on the head, and was like, the reason why Audre Lorde wrote this was because she had dedicated so much of her life to serving the community as a Black, gay, lesbian woman, to serving her community through her work, through her activism, through her writing. And she disabled because of her cancer diagnosis. And she had to step back and take care of herself, not to be disengaged, but literally for her own survival, because she was burning it at both ends and in the middle. And I think when we think about misogynoir and how prevalent it is and how it encourages us to die to ourselves every single day, because we're never going to be man enough, and we're never going to be white enough, and we're never going to be abled enough, and we're never going to be straight enough, like all these things, like it's teaching us that we're never enough in our own bodies and our own existence. And being able to have that self-preservation and be like, no, I reject that, and I'm going to rest, and I'm going to sit still, and I'm going to care for myself, whatever that care looks like. Just even defining it is revolutionary. And taking the time to be like, self-care for me is not going to get a pedicure, right? Self-care for me is actually staying at home and cooking for myself, or staying at home and resting with myself, because I want to care about my financial future, and I don't want to spend money on a pedicure because that is
Mm,
something that isn't for my best interest long term, right? It's that type of self-care that is revolutionary, because you're starting to think differently about what the world tells you you should do to
mm.
care for yourself versus what you're actually going to do and put into practice.
Oof, you gave me a revelation. You need to give me a revelation with that. A few years ago, I worked at a major institution in higher ed, And within like 9 months of that job, I had like severe carpal tunnel and I was losing my hair. Okay, this is like my dream.
Whoa.
It was my
Say it
dream.
again, 9 months?
9 months, severe carpal tunnel.
No.
I'm 26 at the time, maybe. I had to leave the job because of that. And I, for a year, probably for a couple of years, carried shame about that because I felt like this was my dream job. And my narrative was like, why couldn't I push through this thing? And I think, like, as Black women, like, as I mentioned, I think we end up carrying so much shame when spaces become untenable for us because the marker becomes on us of leaving. Like, you left because you were too weak or because you couldn't withstand. But you made me think so much more about the act of self preservation is paying attention to the spaces that inflame us and being willing to leave when that inflammation just becomes beyond what is tenable. And I think for me, I felt like for so long, I felt like a sense of failure, but then you made me realize the success was being in touch enough with my body to realize all that glitters is not gold. And what the space is giving me in status, it is taking from me in health and well being. And like, I choose that in a world that tells me I should always pursue status. And something I mentioned before is I went through a major breakup last year, and you gave me a revelation because in my own wondering, I've always wondered, like, sometimes, like, why I've shamed myself a lot for not being able to manage and withstand that dynamic. And I think what you gave me was the gift of, I think, really being able to make progress and self forgiveness to realize something was unlivable there. Something inflamed something in me so much that I just couldn't be there. And instead of shaming the part of me that couldn't be there, it's asking, what was unlivable there and how can I create a safe container around that? And so I think even for me as a Black woman, there's so many shame places I carry for not being strong enough versus being able to thank the tender parts of me for saying, is it soft enough for me? So you gave me a huge revelation. So thank you for that.
But I you're very welcome, and I feel like I love what your mom said about redefining what success looks like,
Yeah.
because I felt that way after my divorce or when I decided to get divorced. I felt like I did all the things. I'm successful. I have a good job. I have a marriage. I own a home. I have a child. By all intents and purposes, I've made it, right? And then I had all these things and I was wildly unhappy.
Yes. Oh,
Like, I just was so
yeah.
like, and then to look around and this man is happy. And I'm like,
Mm.
you like this? This is terrible. I hate it here. Get me out of here. But
Yeah.
I had defined the success marker of all these things. Like I had my, 3, 5, 10 year plan. And then at 35, I had all of it.
Mm.
And so now I'm like, okay, now I have to redefine. And I think for some people, reframing the idea of like, not that I have to redefine success, I get to redefine what success looks like. I have
Yes.
the opportunity to. I'm still young. I can still define. There's no point in life where I can't redefine my existence. But again, it goes back to what we were talking about before. We have to have community. If I
Mm.
didn't have friends to look into my experience to say, girl, you all right? Like, you seem to
Mm.
be sleeping a lot. Do you really you're opening another bottle of wine?
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
it's
Calling me
having
into
those
the
people to call you into the hardest parts of yourself that
Yes.
is so necessary. And that is revolutionary too. And I love that your mom gave that to you because so many people don't pass that information along. They don't say, like, yo, you don't have to do any of this if you don't want to.
Yes. No, 100%. And I think just, yeah, just everything you said. I think there's so much, I think, for Black women about us loving our gentlest places. And that's when I started a Patreon community
Yes, we started
called
a
the Community
Patreon.
Garden. So I hope you all join. I sent out for our first paid members two resources. One is like a religious deconstruction resource, and one is a plant and well-being guide. And the plant and well-being guide, one of the first lessons is like, let the gentlest thought be true. For example, in any situation, like me and Cass could not, I don't know, say like I text Cass, she doesn't respond for a week. The hardest thought might be Cass is mad at me. And the gentlest thought might be Cass is busy with her daughter, she's busy with her family, she'll get back to me. And oftentimes for ourselves, our self-assessment becomes the hardest one. We don't get the job and it becomes I didn't do enough versus this isn't the opportunity for me. A relationship ends and it's I'm a failure instead of something new is coming. And something I'm practicing with myself because like I said, my biggest issue is shame is what is the gentlest thought about myself and how do I trust that that is true in a world that says we must be critical of ourselves to grow. And something I've learned through therapy and being engaged in Buddhist practice is actually shame and self-judgment are antithetical to any transformation we're trying to make. And I think for Black women, addressing shame, addressing self-loathing, addressing our perfectionism are key to our health. And I say that as a Black woman who has an autoimmune condition and got diagnosed a few years ago. And I still have to, I really need to do the work of tackling my hustling mentality, my perfectionism, so my body can be full and, creating that gentle ecosystem of care around myself. I think I'm at the beginning of that, but the more that I come into affirmation, liking myself, just being kind to myself, the way I feel in my body every day is so different. And I think for Black women, that's not just some self-help mumbo jumbo or psychobabble, like it is key to our survival. Is that
It is key to our survival, and it is an
yeah.
act of political warfare.
Warfare. Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
wait,
so
ask this
oh, wait,
wait,
one more thing, because 'cause we're coming up on time, girl. We
I
could
was
keep
gonna ask
talking.
you a closeout question. You go.
No, no, go ahead. Ask your closeout question. I
Okay.
forgot. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, 'cause I have to close out a little early today. I have a newsletter right now called Sacred Dissent. So I wanted to ask you at the end of every episode, what is Sacred Dissent looking like for you right now? What does Sacred Dissent look like for the 90 as someone who's a member of the 92%? What is that?
Yeah, I love that. So, when you say sacred, let's define what that is, just so we can like all level set. Because I think I need to
Yes.
let me noodle. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, so I call my newsletter Sacred Dissent because, like, for example, like in a capitalist society, resting is a sacred dissent. And a society that says Black women don't deserve care and rest, maybe getting your nails done is sacred dissent. For me, as someone who works in religious deconstruction, finding God in my garden is a type of sacred dissent. So I think we think about dissenting as like this negative thing that means we're leaving conformity, but I think it's something sacred. It's a sacred, like, sanctified place where we are caring for our authentic self, where we're creating tenderness for ourselves. So in a world that says that 92% the Black women, we should be hustling and protecting people and creating social justice ecosystems of care. What does sacred descent mean right now for you as a Black?
Yeah. Oh man, it's such a good question. So I would say a couple of things. One, sacred descent, which I'm not that great at. I've really been trying to focus on my sleep hygiene specifically.
Oh,
I love being productive during the day. I love, like, I really have the opportunity to create great content and to write and ideate and all these things in my work life. But it also, some of those things keep me up at night. And I think a lot about not just the tasks, but the meat and potatoes of what I'm going to say. My brain, my neurospicy brain just comes awake at night. And so,
oh,
I've been really trying to like use that as an opportunity for care for myself.
oh,
And so I started during the pandemic doing this like clock out at 8:30. Like mama clocks out at 8:30. I don't care if the dishes aren't done. I don't care if the laundry's not put away. If everybody's eaten, cool. If you haven't eaten by 8:30, it's not my problem. Mama clocks out at 8:30. And I got away from that. And so I think getting back into that is going to be so important because I did feel like a little bit of pushing against that misogynoir and those expectations when I was like, no, this day is over. I am
oh,
done with this day. I have done everything that I can with this time. And now I need to, and it might be scrolling on TikTok. It might be going for a walk. It might be laying in my bed with the lights off and not going to sleep, but still just being in here. It might be listening to music, smelling a candle. It could be all these different things. And I think having that in connection with my sleep hygiene is something I really, really, really want to get back to because it was very helpful. And it did feel like a sacred time and a sacred space. And everybody knew if you were at my house at 8:30 any day of the week and you came and talked to me, I'm not talking back.
yeah.
Like we have nothing to talk about.
I love it.
This day is done.
Yeah. Period.
There's a book I used to read to my kid. The day the sun has set not long ago, it's time to go down below to wash our face and brush our teeth. Something, something, go to sleep, right?
Mm,
Like, we're done.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the other thing that I'm really trying to work on also is I've gotten out of the habit of my hobbies. So finding space, I like to paint, and so finding space to like make sure that I'm doing that.
I love all of that. I just yeah, I think hobbies are big. Adult play is huge. Like pick up a basketball, y'all pick up a football, go to the park and play kickball with your
Not
friends.
everybody was an elite athlete there, sister.
All right, go for a walk, then, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, get
That's the
outdoors.
best. This arthritis, these bad knees, that's the best I can do. Sorry about it.
Okay, okay, got you. For me, one, I think it's like aggressively speaking kindness to myself. Like anytime a negative thought comes in, I want to genuinely work on reprogramming my brain in a positive way and see what comes up if I talk to myself like my best friend for like a month or 2 months. Like, what is that process? So I think that's a big one for me. And I think the other thing right now is not placing my value in what I can produce. I think when I feel low, my way to reaffirm my sense of worthiness is through work, but I'd like to have a different way to come back to myself outside of productivity because that can still create a dynamic where if you don't do it, then you still don't feel good. So, what is a way to have a consistent positive experience of myself? I think is really big. And really pouring into my friends' lives helps. Like, I went to a couple birthdays this week and just doing parties and just focusing in on other people, pouring into them does help me. Like, I don't think we should pour from an empty cup, but sometimes pouring fills our own cup, reminding that we're ourselves we're of value in a community and that we can help our friends feel good about their lives, that helps me too.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are coming at time. Thank you to everyone who is listening. We're so glad that you're here. If you've made it this far in the episode, please make sure you like and subscribe. You can find us on Patreon. You can find us on LinkedIn. We have our own individual websites. TikTok. Ciarra's better at TikTok than me, but you can find us both on TikTok. And we really look forward to being right there with you, however that looks and feels for the foreseeable future.
Thanks, y'all.
If today's conversation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It helps more people find this space of exploration and connection.
And if you want to go deeper, support us on Patreon. Your membership helps us keep these conversations going, and it gives you access to exclusive content.
Because this isn't just a podcast, it's a community. And no matter where you are on your journey, we're right there with you.